Hey everyone, so I wanted to pick up again where Kristen left off yesterday and just show you a few more tips and tricks for using commands while you're building your sections in Rhino. So I actually changed my linear array to 3 meters because I found that a little bit better of a scale for building. So the distance between these is no longer 25, it is 3 meters, and you can adjust this depending on the elevation difference in your section. Some people may have very flat sections and they may only need to use 1 meter increments as they're building things up. I have a lot of residential houses on here, and 3 meters is the size of 1 story generally. So if I look at the housing typologies in my area, I can make an educated guess based on my site visit that most of these houses are 2 to 3 stories high, with accessory buildings in the back, like sheds and garages, are 1 story high with a roof. So I'm not trying to do a ton of detail in this section. I'm just trying to outline the basic buildings and their basic heights. So I'm going to just go ahead and hide this linear array. What I'm left with after I have used the polyline tool or line tool to draw in some of these site elements is a section cut line, and it becomes very more refined than the one that we got from Google Earth. So see if I can turn on the original line. This yellow line is the original section cut line that I generated from Google Earth and brought in via the topography from SketchUp. But as you see now, it's beginning, my new section line here is beginning to deviate from here because we're responding to the site elements as we see them on the plan. So in places where I know there's a roadway, I know that the roadway isn't sloping along with the site topography. So when I look at my plan and I know that there's a roadway crossing my site, I can guess that there's a curb there. And I just draw the road straight and give a curb on either side. And you can kind of adjust the interfaces between the slopes and the roads. You have to make some educated guesses here. But as long as you're in general following the slope, I think that you'll still be reflecting with fairly good accuracy what is going on your site. Now you see these bubbles up here. These are places where I have notated that my section line crosses, for example, a treed area where you would be able to see canopy in the background. So here and here. And so instead of trying to draw in trees, I've just used a command called sketch. And this sketch command, it allows you to basically just click once and drag your cursor around and create a little sketch. And it's, as soon as you click, it's just going to create a closed sort of polyline, a closed spline really. And it's not really accurate, of course, but it's just sort of to get you to a place where you can see like, okay, yes, there's trees behind. Once I move this plan into another program, I can more accurately define what those trees or clump of trees looks like. So another useful command, as I see this is my section line, and then I have a gray line for the elevational information of the buildings that I can see in the background. You can see there's points where the lines extend beyond the section cut line or don't quite reach the cut line. So I'm just going to turn off the old section cut. So there's some commands that we can use, and one of them is trim. If we select the section cut line and then enter the command TR for trim, make sure that you've gone into the Rhino interface video that I posted yesterday and loaded the aliases that I posted on Canvas. So TR for trim, that turns this entire line basically into a trimming object. And now we can just go and select the lines underneath that we want to trim and get rid of them. So If you have modeled, even if you've modeled really nicely, you'll still have places where the lines just cross as you keep adjusting and moving. So look out for those. And then when you're done trimming, you can just press enter to end the command. We can also turn this into an extension plane. So if we use the command EX, we will select that as the boundary object, press enter, and then we can click on lines to extend them down onto the section cut line. I think that was the only one that I was missing. All right, here we have a place where I still have remnants of the old section cut line, but I have drawn in a new definition where there's a bit of a drop and a straighter path. So we can use a command called, we can either use the trim command to trim away this information, or we can use the split command. So if I just wanted to trim off this background slope, I again would just use the trim command and click it away. You could also use the split command. So you select the line that you want to split, put in SP for split, select the cutting object, which is this little curb area, press enter, and now you have a split line. And you'll just want to make sure as you keep going with your section that if you use these split and trim commands, that you're joining your section line back into one continuous line. Just press J for join. So you see I've added in some slopes and flatter planes here in contrast to my original section cut line, which was very curved and smooth. I do that because, as I said, I'm looking at the plan and I know that, you know, if this is a driving and parking area, it's not going to be sloped. So the topography is a general guess, and you have to go in and say, like, look, I can see a shadow from a wall here, so I know there's a retaining wall here. This area is probably flat. And then where I cut here around this point, it looks like we're, you know, if we have to mitigate the slope that we have, we're sloping down, and then these train tracks are going to be flat. We might have another slope here. This area is going to be flat, and then we're sloping down to the water. So that's what I have reflected in my section as I've built it. So if you deviate from your original line, that's good. It means you're interpreting the plan and making some guesses about what is going on site. So what can we do with this section next? The first thing would be to decide if you are ready to export this line work into Illustrator and begin working with it there. Another thing would be if you wanted to create a box kind of below this to contain additional underground layers, you could do that. So I'm going to go onto my section and use a polyline to draw an underground box. And I'm using that smart track to match up my endpoint here. You can see how it got hovered over and then drew a guideline while I was working. If you have a lot of background elevational information that you want to show, you might want to continue projecting some of that important elevational information from your plan. So even though this is our section cut line, and the most important thing is to see all of the places where the section cut line cuts through buildings and site elements, in my example, we have all of these buildings in the background, and we're going to see some of those buildings. So I've drawn a few of those in the background in elevation, just by projecting their lines up. And you can kind of decide for yourself how far into the background you want to see. I'm gonna keep it with these sort of ones within, like I've kind of stopped it here, but you could go further if you decide there's some really important things that you want to see back here behind your section cut line and really far into the distance, then that would be up to you. In this case, we have a ton of residential housing behind, and if I wanted to show that, I might actually just use like a photograph of housing in the background instead of trying to draw in every single line that is from the elevational information. It's probably going to get a little complicated. it's important that we kind of simplify these to the elements that are important to what we want to show. So don't get too hung up on drawing in all of the background information, but do decide for yourself what is important to show and what can be left out. Once you have your section drawn, and provided that you have used your layers in a good way, and so, the things that are in elevation are on the elevation layer, the water is on the water layer, and the section is on the section layer, you can select your line work and go File, Export Selected. We're going to change this to an Adobe Illustrator file. We want our model scale to be 1 to 1000. So if we had put 1 meter equals 1000 millimeters, that would be 1 to 1 because there are 1000 millimeters in a meter. If we had put 100 millimeters, this would be a scale of 1 to 10 because we've removed a 0 point from the measurement. Likewise, this would be 1 to 100, and now we're at 1 to 1000. 1 meter is equal to 1 millimeter.